Jonathan failed at his dream of becoming a famous sports journalist and had to get a real job and a beautiful family and fulfilling life. But fortunately, anyone in America can record a podcast. His good buddy Jackson has a great radio voice and happens to know a lot about golf because he works at a golf course. Together, they will bring you the Not So Ball Knowers, a thrilling podcast where we deliver lukewarm takes and interview guests much smarter than us. Get excited because this podcast has some exciting stuff. Welcome to the Not So Ball Knowers.
All right. How are we doing, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Not So Ball Knowers. My name is Jackson, alongside my co-host, Jonathan. We've got an interesting, fun episode for you tonight. No guest tonight. We will have a guest on next week's pod. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Olympics, not go super deep, cover what was a super exciting day in golf as we get closer and closer to major season, and a lot more. But before we dive into the fun stuff, I am going to turn it over to my co-host, Jonathan, to say a couple words.
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone listening has probably heard the news because I know we have a lot of Tennessee fans, but this has been a really tough week for me. I lost a friend. You all probably have heard by now about Wes Rucker. He passed away in a car wreck. Just a great human being. He left behind his wife, who's pregnant with their second child in May, and their 4-year-old son, Hake. Wes was a great dad. He was a great husband. His wife is one of the greatest people you'll know. I knew Wes, as we all know. I went to Tennessee to study journalism, so I got to know Wes when I worked at the Daily Beacon. I was extremely awkward. Most student reporters are extremely awkward, but despite all that, Wes always made sure to show love to not just me, but to all the Daily Beacon writers. And it's hard to talk about Jackson, so I would just say that I could talk a lot about all the great stuff that Wes did for me, but I encourage everyone to read the tribute videos in our YouTube description. I really encourage people to give to his GoFundMe. Wes did not have,
and we're going to drop we're going to have all the links to those various things on our socials in a day or two. So once this podcast gets uploaded to the internet, we'll make sure in our show notes to have links to the GoFundMe. And I know there's a meal train and other things like that. So
there's a meal train. He did not have life insurance. So every money, even if you can give $10, all of it counts. Cause once again, he left, he survived by his wife and a 4-year-old, and it's really tough to talk about. And Jackson, I would say that reading the tributes have been beautifully heartbreaking. They've been beautiful because it is beautiful to see a person who was able to have such a great impact on so many people. And he left behind the legacy I think we should all aspire to leave behind, which is a great dad, a great wife, and a great family person who cared for his friends and loved his friends. And, so that's the legacy you want to leave behind. And it's just beautiful to see all these people coming out and saying the ways that Wes impacted them. And it's also heartbreaking because this great person is no longer with us, and we're all going to really miss him. And it's, for me, it still hasn't honestly sunk in yet, to be honest with you, Jackson. I'm still processing. Right. Baseball season's going to be tough because he had a lot of great, baseball was his sport. So he had a lot of great opinions, a lot of great insight into baseball. So I think that's another thing is, we were friends. We weren't super close after I graduated, just with how life happens, but he was still someone that I really respected, and I really enjoyed his coverage. And I ran into him at a baseball game a couple of years ago, and we caught up it was I was just in college yesterday, still working at the Beacon. So very easy person to talk to. And I know, I said, I could spend a long time talking about him. And I do think he would find the idea of me starting a podcast to be hilarious. And I think he would encourage me he would encourage me to like do a podcast because he knew I was no longer doing journalism. So I think he would say something like, yeah, like you should still be able, this is a way for you to kind of stay in touch. And he would be encouraging about it and also kind of
Right.
make a joke. He's like, yeah, don't let the fact that you're awkward and don't speak well, like get in the way of you, like chasing your dreams. Like he would have encouraged me in his, in Wes way, but yeah, just rest in peace to a great man. And I just encourage all of our listeners to keep his wife and his 4-year-old in their prayers, and also to keep his family. He left behind his siblings, and when I read his sister's post on Facebook, like the tribute, like the room was extremely dusty. There were tears, but yeah, to start the show on a sad note, but I do encourage you all to go to the GoFundMe and then just read tributes to Wes. There's everyone who knows him has a great Wes story, and just a great, beautiful soul. And the world is going to miss him. And the world is, I think, a worse. No, I know the world is a worse place without him in it. So, but also
Absolutely.
we're all very blessed. Sorry, I'm bad at for serious things. I could stumble. I've
No,
and
no,
which
you're doing a great job. And I obviously not one to have listened to a lot of his stuff. Being that I don't live in Knoxville, I mean, I'm a Tennessee fan, and I'm sure I have read some of his stuff from back when he was on 247 and things like that. But I think this is just a good moment for us to all have a little perspective in our own lives, right? And be thankful for the fact that we're two working guys. We have 9 to 5s and we have families, and give us that perspective that we need to be a little bit more grateful. I know I definitely need to be more grateful, or I take for granted a lot of things in my life. And sometimes it can seem, since we've started this podcast, right? You take for granted the fact that I do get to come on a video chat and talk to some of my friends that I don't get to see more than a couple times a year. So, you may have more to add, Toy. But just sports brings us all together. Wes was really good at what he did. And, to see the outpouring of support has been really cool.
and it was I really appreciate what Rick said. Rick encouraging me to give the GoFundMe. You saw Scott Van Pelt and Kirk
Yeah,
Herbstreit both
SVP
donated.
on there was so cool.
And that's because I think Scott Van Pelt knew. So Wes had relationships with a lot of high level journalists just from his
Right.
Twitter presence, and just, I mean, Tennessee football is a very major brand, and he was one of the best at covering it. And when you do a good job covering a major brand, you're gonna get recognition. And but
Absolutely.
beyond that, he just was a great person in Knoxville. I'm prepared really hard for what I was going to say entering this podcast because I knew I wanted to say stuff about Wes, and I'm still kind of struggling to put just. I'm still struggling to like say how what I want to say about him, but I think all I just need to say is just pray for his family. Everyone else, a lot of other people have already said the stuff I'm trying to say. Great person. It's really, really sad. So just keep his wife and his son in your prayers, and try to give to the GoFundMe if you can. Any type of money would kind of would help support them.
Absolutely. Well done, Toy. And I know it's been a tough week for you. And obviously, Wes is in my thoughts and prayers, and anybody who had relationships with him like you did. So that was well done. Well, to again, thank you, Wes, for everything. Hopefully, we can be half as good of of sports deliverers of sports news as you were. Well, let's dive into, to our first topic tonight, Jonathan. We are going to have an Olympics recap podcast next week, so I don't want to dwell a lot, but I think it's important that we discuss Team USA, their success in Italy this Olympic season, across figure skating, across skiing, and obviously most notably today and yesterday, men's and women's hockey teams just absolutely delivering. I was in church today, so I did not get
I
to
was too.
watch. I did not get to watch the men's gold medal match versus Canada. But yeah, I mean, just, obviously of note, Alyssa Liu, Michaela Schifrin, Quad God, Amber Glenn, just the figure skating for me is always one of my favorite things about the Winter Olympics. I enjoy it all. I watch a lot of the Olympics. So I'm sad that it's over. But I think my take is the Olympics are the perfect amount of time between when they happen for me to watch these sports, because I can say that I probably wouldn't watch bobsled and luge and that kind of thing. If it were on every day, probably not tuning in. But the fact that I get to watch it every 4 years, and the same with the Summer Olympics, getting to see the gymnastics and track and field and things like that, things that I'm not normally seeking out to watch in my day-to-day sports media intake. So yeah, but curious to hear your thoughts on, I know you have some thoughts written in the show notes, so let's jump in.
Yeah, I have a confession. I did not watch a single minute of the
Really?
Olympic. Well, no, that's not true. My in-laws came yesterday and he had the Olympics on, but I was
Okay.
watching my son. My son's in the phase where like if he can find something dangerous, he will. So it's hard it's hard to consume too much sports when you have a baby who can crawl, because it's like, oh yeah, don't stick your finger in the electrical outlet. Like that's not good. Or yeah, don't
Right,
put that
right.
extremely chokeable object in your mouth, or scan the floor. It's just constant baby proofing and just making sure. But no, I did not watch. And that's not a slight to the Winter Olympics, because I think that they're obviously some of the best athletes on this earth. I think it's incredibly impressive. My wife made me watch a video of Alyssa Liu, the figure skater, and I
She's
thought
so
that's really
badass, man. It's
that
so
no,
cool.
she was awesome. I was really impressed. I just think the thing with me, Jackson, is that I grew up in Tennessee where we got maybe 3 inches of snow a year. I was not
Right,
rich,
right.
so I never went skiing, or I was not athletic enough to go skiing. So I never went on ski resorts. When we did go on a nice vacation, it was somewhere tropical. It was not. All that is to say is my family was never really into winter sports. I grew up in the South, so I had no connection to winter sports. I think it's awesome we beat uh, I think it's awesome that we beat Canada, but I've never gone into hockey, Jackson, and I tried. And if you're a hockey fan and you're listening, before you get out your pitchforks, I think hockey athletes are some of the best athletes in the
Oh,
world. Like what you got, I could never do.
absolutely.
Like I'm putting you all
Absolutely.
above, yeah, above football players and basketball players. You guys are beating the crap out of each other on ice. And I've tried to get into the Preds because the Preds are 2.5 hours down the road, have an amazing fan base. I've been to Preds games. I try to watch their playoffs games. I just can't get into hockey, which is really sad because I know it's a great sport. I just think that sometimes, Jackson, you
The
have to be.
Predators have a better fan base in my opinion. The Predators have a better fan base than the Titans. I
Oh, for sure,
firmly believe that.
for sure.
Firmly believe that.
For some reason, and especially in the city of Nashville, it just feels like that franchise is able to connect with the city and their residents better. And I think maybe I have no idea why that is. I think it's because Nashville started when Nashville started growing. So I think you have a lot of people our
Right.
age who grew up with the Predators. But that's all to say is that I'm really happy we beat
Well,
the.
and as Nashville continues to just boom. I mean, the city itself is. I haven't been to Nashville in probably, I don't know, 10 or so years, but from what I've heard, even in and again, I haven't been in 10 years. I've heard that it's just changed drastically, even in that amount of time.
It's a cool city. No, I don't go as much as I would like, but that's all to say is that I can recognize what a great sport hockey is. I just can't get into it for whatever reason. I think it's because I didn't grow up like if I grew up in Nashville, I'd probably be a huge Predators fan. And I'm once again like the miracle on ice. I root for the USA. I'm really glad we won the gold medal, but I think it's just that I can't really relate to the Olympic sports. And I feel like I feel like I view the Winter Olympics the same way that European sports fans view American football, because Roger Goodell and the NFL are really trying to make football a thing outside the United States. That's why Bad Bunny performed on the halftime show. It wasn't because he was an awesome musician and a great artist. No, they did that because like, oh, this guy has a lot of international fans. we can bring in a bigger audience. And it's just so funny to me because you know that scene in Mean Girls, Jackson, where that one mean girl, Gretchen Wieners, keeps saying, "That's so fetch. That's so fetch." And
Mm-hmm.
then finally, Regina George, played by the GOAT, Rachel McAdams, snaps and says, "Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch a thing happen. It's never going to happen." That's what I want to say to Roger Goodell. I want to say, stop trying to make NFL happen to international countries. There's never going to happen with them. Because even on the Super Bowl broadcast, it cracked me up. This is a long tangent, but it needs to be said, Jackson. It cracked me up that they're like, look at all these international like countries getting excited for the Super Bowls, and they showed like dimly lit bars where it was like half full. And then they showed Puerto Rico for Bad Bunny. They all left. Like they all stayed for halftime and they left. So like they brought Bad Bunny to attract a bigger audience. And I think they're playing games in France this year. They play in Germany.
I'm gonna push back a little bit. I think that part of it was Bad Bunny's pedigree, man. I mean, I will say
No,
this.
he does have a great pedigree, but that's not why he performed. They wanted to bring in more. They're trying to bring in an international audience, and that was why they brought him in. But yeah, he's great.
But like you, Bad Bunny's not playing the Super Bowl if he is not the artist that he is, right? If he hadn't
Good
garnered
point.
the fame and won the Grammys, like, I don't know. That's just and this might just be because I enjoy his music personally.
Oh, that's
So
very
maybe
fair.
maybe I'm a Bad Bunny stan. I stan Bad Bunny, but
No,
I don't know. Like if he had 10 million monthly average listeners on Spotify versus his 90 million, I think that's obviously a totally different conversation, right? So
I just think
but
it's
yes.
funny. It just made me funny that yeah, he is a great acclaimed artist, but they also wanted to get his fans into football, and it's just fun. Like I feel like all of the people at the watch party at Puerto Rico, man, I cannot pronounce stuff, guys. Puerto Rico, when all those people showed up to the watch party, by the third quarter it was empty. I feel like that just perfectly encapsulates the NFL's effort to make football popular with an international audience. Just that scene of no one at the watch party after Bad Bunny performed. Like Regina George says, Roger Goodell, it's not going to happen. Stop making it happen. And because I think European fans look at American football the same way that I look at the Winter Olympics. They're like, oh, it's an interesting sport. Like I can see why Americans like it, but not really my thing. We have real football. We have the OG football. And that's kind of how I feel, Jackson, about the Winter Olympics. Is I was like, oh yeah, like, if I lived in the North, or if I grew up skiing, playing winter sports, or if I grew up in a hockey town, I'd be really into the Winter Olympics. But I wasn't. I grew up in the South, so I have my football and hoops.
And I think too, I think it's based on how you were raised. I was raised in a household where the Olympics were on, like during an Olympic, whether it was summer or winter. We had NBC Olympic coverage on, whether it was the recap coverage or live events. Like growing up, it was on every single day. So I get what you're saying. I think that, I don't know. I ran track in high school. And so I considered running collegiately as well. And so I think that I don't know, people have different appreciations for different things based off how you were raised and what sports you play. So maybe this is our first official true disagreement on the Not So Ball Knowers, but like again, it's not sports that I'm seeking out to watch in my day-to-day life, but I love it. Like I get so amped up. I get so pumped up when it's an Olympic year. Like I'm already ready to hopefully we'll see if Simone Biles competes again in 2 years in Los Angeles at the Summer Olympics. Like I hope that she does, because I get juiced up about that stuff.
I watched the Summer Olympics. No, I'm not. Again, I don't want anyone to think I'm denigrating the Olympics. It's they are great sports, great athletes, and I see why people get into it. It's just a personal thing, and I feel like I have to be true to myself. Just like with hockey, where I know it's a great sport. There was a time where I pretended really hard to be a hockey fan, and that's just not authentic. I think sometimes you just have to admit people love this sport, but it's just not for me, or people love doing this, but it's not just for me. And that's how I feel about the Winter Olympics. And
yeah, I hear you for sure.
to some degree, Summer Olympics, but I'll watch more of the Summer Olympics.
Right, right. And I think too, and I same as you, I did not grow up skiing or snowboarding. I have snowboarded a few times. I'm not good. But I did grow
I'd
up
be in
in
the
an area where
hospital if
we had three pretty, I grew up in the mountains of Virginia, and we didn't get a ton of snow, but we got, we would get two or three like measurable snows every year. And so I grew up in an area where I was within an hour of three pretty major ski resorts, Snowshoe in West Virginia, Massanutten and Harrisonburg, Virginia, and then Wintergreen outside of Charlottesville. And still where I live now, like, I mean, we had snow on the ground for the better part of 6 weeks, from mid-January to up until a couple days ago.
that
So,
sounds awful, but yeah.
it was pretty rough. We were supposed to get more today, but it never really changed over to snow. It actually stayed as just kind of a nasty rain. And but it sounds like New York and areas like that are getting hit pretty hard. But that's another topic for another day. Anything else to add, Toy, to Olympics? Again, I don't want to go super in the weeds here because we're gonna have a guest on next week to discuss Olympics and who has some figure skating knowledge and things like that. But anything else to add before we wrap up on that topic and move on?
No, I did. My wife did make me watch a video of Alyssa Liu, and I thought she was awesome, and that was really cool, and I did get fired up. So maybe if I watch more figure skating, I'll get into it. But if we have any passionate figure skater fans, like I said, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I just have to be true to myself, just like how Europeans are true to themselves when they admit they don't really care about American football. I love American football. Them not caring about it doesn't really hurt my feelings. I'm like, yeah, you guys have
Right.
soccer. Soccer's really cool. I can't get into soccer, but I
Well,
think it's one of the great.
shout out Alyssa Liu. Shout out Alyssa
Shout out
Liu.
Alyssa Liu.
Shout out men's and women's athletes all across all nations for what they competed in and did. And we're excited to take a deep dive and get into some of the nitty gritty next week. Um, all right. So speaking of nitty gritty, that's a fun word, nitty gritty. I'm going to get nitty gritty on some golf stuff since I didn't get to
What?
talk
What?
golf
What's?
last week.
Did you
What's
forget?
up?
I have to do the golf intro. Yeah, it's
Oh,
time to do
yes,
the
I
golf.
did.
All right,
God,
it's going
this
to
is
be
my
different each
favorite.
week,
All right.
but here it
All
goes.
right.
Ladies and gentlemen, get on your feet. Get excited wherever you're listening. It's time to get fired up because it's the weekly or sometimes bi weekly golf recap by Jackson Beecham. All right, you can go.
Our listeners' ears are gonna be hurting after that because I could my eardrums were ringing in my
Their heart's
my
also going to be
AirPods.
pounding. Their heart's also going to be pounding faster because they're eager to hear what you have to say about golf. So
I can't
proceed.
wait.
They're on the edge of
All
their
right.
seat
Well,
right
so
now, so don't
like you
keep them waiting.
mentioned, weekly or bi-weekly, I did not get to talk golf last week, even though there was a signature event last week. But I'm all right. I prefer the PGA Tour over the Live Golf League. I have said this before. I just think the competition is better, and I like the style of golf that is played on the PGA Tour. That is a controversial take for some people. I got to lead in, though. I don't know if you saw the headlines last week, Jonathan, but one of the best feel-good stories in the game of golf in the last, other than Rory winning the Masters last year and Tiger winning the Masters in 2019, one of the best feel-good stories to come out of the game of golf happened on Live Golf last week with Anthony Kim basically completing the comeback that I don't think anybody thought was going to happen at all. I am still floored. He did it on a big boy golf course. There's been some critique that some of the golf courses that are getting played on the Live Tour are not, world-renowned tracks. What happened, what AK did last week, there are no, I essentially, I have words, but I really don't have words to describe how cool it was. And so for those of you who maybe are casuals in the golf world, Anthony Kim completely stepped away from the game. If I am understanding correctly, and I apologize if I don't have all of my facts completely right here. he took a pretty decent chunk of change from, I believe, an insurance policy to step away from the game of golf for a wrist or hand injury that he had several years, like we're talking 10 or more years ago. And he disappeared. I mean, the guy disappeared, and he hasn't been, obviously hasn't gone into detail, but has had some pretty adverse, issues that he's worked through from a personal standpoint. And, he's now fully sober, and, he's got a wife, he's got a kid, and it's just awesome. And to
You love
see
to see
somebody
it.
like that, you really do. There's like, live PGA Tour aside, like this is good stuff. This is why we play the game of golf. I get fired up about this stuff, man. And I mean, you can see it right now. Like, I'm fired up.
Yeah,
I don't
one
I
of the
don't
most fired
watch
up I've
live
ever seen
golf.
you.
I don't watch live. I don't find live interesting. I didn't necessarily
No offense.
watch.
No offense to any of our No offense to any of our listeners named Liv. He's talking about the golf organization.
I'm talking about the tour. But my point being, I might not be watching week in and week out on the live tour, but that was good stuff, man. And that is, I don't know. It was great. Anything to add? That was a passionate rundown. Congratulations, Anthony Kim. Just great. It just is awesome. I hope we get to see him in some of the majors this year. It's really, really heartwarming stuff.
No, I think you said it great. And this is from of extremely golf casual. So I don't have anything to add other than just keep cooking. I like what
Yeah,
you're putting in the
keep
oven.
going.
Just turn up the temperature even higher. I like what you have in the oven.
Awesome. Well, I won't talk about AK more because I could go on and on, but I will dive into a little bit of what has been happening on the PGA Tour the last couple of weeks. Jacob Bridgman won today at the Genesis in Pacific Palisades, California, at one of my favorite, just a true test of golf at Riviera Country Club. Toy, I'm going to run through really quick, and I want you to I'm going to run through Jacob Bridgman's last 5 finishes,
I
or
have it
last
pulled
4
up.
finishes leading up to this. So T4, T13, T18, and T8. Obviously, he won today. What's one word that you would use to describe that? I mean, there's a lot of words you could use, but like, just as a casual fan, what's one word that you would use?
I'd say improving.
Yeah. Trending is
Resilience.
what we use the word
Yeah,
trending a lot in golf. Like, I mean, it's awesome. Like, the kid's playing great golf, and I can say kid because he's younger than me, but it's just, and like, today he went up against the second best player in the world in Rory McIlroy, and Rory, I mean, Rory played good. And Jacob was leaking a little oil on the back 9. There was some shakiness on 16, a little shakiness on 17, but like, he stuffed it to like 15 feet on 18 and 2-putted for the win, and you love to see it. What excites me is, obviously, I am a big Rory fan. Watching Rory play really good golf today has me excited for what will hopefully be another great season for Rory. He's likely going to play 2 more times before the Masters. We'll definitely see him in Ponte Vedra for the Players, and probably one other start. He'll probably play the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. So we'll see Rory probably 2 more times before we get to Augusta. But shout out, congratulations, Jacob Bridgman. Really good stuff. But I do have, and not to sound like a boomer, not to sound like an old man.
I love boomers, for the record. So even if you do, it's welcome and embraced here.
And this is truly like, again, we're getting nitty gritty here, and getting picky on our takes. But I know that they're going to be rolling back the golf ball here in a couple years and making the golf ball go a little less far. I did not used to be in this camp. I hit the golf ball pretty far myself, not to toot my own horn. I strongly feel, though, that the golf ball is going too far, and it is taking away some of the character of these golf courses, because players are just able to absolutely overpower these golf courses. Just this week alone, there was one hole at Riviera where last year to this year, they had to plant 2 trees because players were completely not playing the hole the way the hole was intended to be played, hitting it over basically what is not, it's not necessarily out of bounds, but basically flying it over top of an area that is not the way that the golf hole was supposed to be intended. Well, so how did Riviera respond? They planted 2 trees right in that area to basically mitigate guys from doing that. And it's that stuff is going to happen until we get to a point where we can roll back this golf ball. But the golf clubs themselves are, in my opinion, just a little bit too hot. Like literally meaning like hot as in the speed in which the golf ball comes off the face of these golf clubs.
It also seems that the courses are maybe struggling with evolution.
Right.
Humans are
And
getting
the reason
stronger.
being, yeah, well, that's a great, I mean, like, and you don't even watch a ton of golf and you just hit the nail on the head. Like the golf, but the issue is they can't, because the only real way to combat this other than planting trees is to make the golf courses longer. And in Pacific Palisades, California, what's limited? Real estate. So how do you do that? You plant trees, right? So, obviously there's some golf courses that have the ability to do this, but this is an endemic to our game. It is an endemic to the game of golf. Players are hitting the golf ball entirely too far. And it kind of makes me sick. I mean, I get it. Congratulations. I love watching Rory pound it 320. I love watching Jacob Bridgman hit it over 300. Like, it's great. I am not discounting what they're able to do from an athletic standpoint, but it is taking away from the integrity of the game of golf as a whole.
No, and I agree. And the reason that all sounds good and just kind of makes sense, because I feel that's a problem, or I feel with every sport, every generation of players are better than the next. And you can easily see that with basketball. I
Oh,
if you
yeah.
go if you go watch the 60s, if you go watch a highlight of the 60s Celtics championship team, I watched one. My first thought said, this Tennessee basketball team would beat them by 30 points. Like, they would have no answer for Nate Net or even Jacoby Gillespie. Like, no one would be quick enough to stay in front of him. And Nate
Oh,
Net
yeah.
would, and with golf, because at least with basketball, like, the court stays the same. So you just get better quality of play. But with golf, it makes sense too that this generation of golfers are probably stronger and honestly more skilled than the golfers when they designed the course in the 60s or 70s. I don't know when most of these golf courses were designed, to be honest, but it makes sense that what would have been a very difficult course for a golfer in the 60s is probably not so much now for a
Oh,
golfer in
yeah.
2026.
I mean, the golf course that they played today just celebrated their 100th anniversary. So a golf course that's been around for 100 years. Now, granted, it has changed. It's, they've had to change the golf course, but there's a lot of golf courses that don't have the ability to make changes. I mean, obviously a golf course like Riviera has a multi-million-dollar budget to make basically any change they want. Augusta National has the ability to make any change that they want. Pinehurst has the budget and the ability and the resources to make any change that they want to basically accommodate the game, unless you're constricted by real estate, which a lot of golf courses are. You can't necessarily just go buy, and unless you're Augusta National, which Augusta has proven that they're one of the exceptions to that rule, because Augusta seems to be buying new property left and right in the town of Augusta, Georgia. But so, and I would also like to, any of my personal friends who know me, who know when I get passionate about my golf takes, this is a complete 180 from where I stood on this topic a couple years ago. I was actually anti rollback, but it's just, I am, as a golf purist, as somebody who wants to protect the integrity of the game, I just find it more and more necessary. But that's enough of me yelling about golf balls. I'm sure that'll be great for our viewership, just listening to me rant about golf balls.
I mean, we have a bunch of national parks. Do bears and deer really need all that land? Like, surely we could like use some of the national parks for golf course. This is a joke,
no, we
by the
can't
way.
do that, Toy, because they're trying to build data centers. I think data centers are already spoken for.
That was also a joke. Like,
That's
I
also a joke.
I do not advocate deforesting the Smoky Mountain National Park so we can build a world-class golf facility in Townsend. I that was a joke. I don't want any of our listeners to get mad. So put down your pitchforks.
Oh goodness. I don't have a ton else to add on golf. I One of my favorite stretches of golf of the season is coming up, the Florida Swing. We've got the Cognizant Classic in the Palm Beaches coming up. You've got the Players Championship in Ponte Vedra, Arnold Palmer Invitational. There's a lot of opinions out there about some of the golf courses that get played over the next stretch of tournaments, but it's just a lot of fun. The weather's always really good, and it's just good. It gets it. You start getting to some of these bigger events. You start getting the juice starts flowing. You get excited about
The weather
Augusta.
gets
I'm
nicer.
pumped up. Though exactly like we had this past Friday, it was 72 degrees here in Virginia, and
Yeah, it
obviously
was beautiful.
snowing and raining here today. So we've got
Such a
that.
tease.
We've got that fall spring happening here. I'm sure you're in the same boat, but yeah, man, I'm getting pumped up. I did want to mention one other thing since I hit Anthony Kim, talked about Jacob Bridgman, Rory trending well. Just down the leaderboard, some names. Jake Knapp continues to play well. Great to see Jordan Spieth playing well. Adam Scott played really well today. Just like the buoy. He's just always there. He's just seems like year in and year out. Adam Scott's he might not necessarily win, but he's going to have some top tens. And I did want to hit on one thing since last week we did not get to cover. Last week was also a signature event on the PGA Tour. Colin Morikawa won at Pebble Beach, which is one of the most storied venues in all of our sport. So shout out to Colin. Great to see him. He's had some yips, as we call it in the game of golf, in his game the last couple of years, but looks like the putter's getting better, overcoming some of the chipping issues. So just great to see that. So the names that you want to see, playing well, the bigger names. I mean, Collins won 2 majors in his career already. Scotty continues to play well. Did not play well in the opening round this week, but still managed, I think, a top 15 finish this week at Riviera. So man, I'm getting excited for major season to kick off and to see what's going to happen. So yeah, it was great. I watched almost all the golf today after church. I really didn't have a ton going on. Had a couple work things I had to tend to, but after that was over, I locked in and watched golf. So it was a great day. But anyways, that ends my golf segment. Toy, you have anything to add?
No, I'm not even that huge fan of golf, and I could listen to you talk about golf for hours. I always learn a lot. I love your enthusiasm. It gets me fired up and wanting to like golf more. But yeah, no, great job with the golf recap. I know our listeners listen to golf and they're probably excited to hear more about golf and probably wish I had stopped talking during your segment. So yeah, great job.
Well, I'm excited for our next segment because I get to listen to you speak about something that I know you're passionate about, and something that I've been reading a lot of. Well, not reading in depth, but skimming a lot of, doing a lot of headline reading and skimming articles about this next topic. So why don't we jump right in?
So the biggest story in the sports world for Tennessee athletics on Friday was that Joey Aguilar got denied for his injunction, which was a surprise to me, just with someone who knows nothing about legal proceedings or how the law works in general. Just was told by people smarter than me that it was a good chance he would get it. That was not the case. Like I said, I know nothing about how all this legal proceedings work or the law. I'm not a lawyer. So if I tried to tell you if the judge made the right or wrong call, I would look really embarrassing. I'd sound even dumberer than I normally am. Yeah. So honestly, Jackson, now that we put the law aside, since I can't actually tell if it's a smart decision or not, from my fandom perspective at first, Jackson, let me tell you that I was originally disappointed because I was expecting Joey to come back, and I thought, okay, a year in the system, he already has a good rapport with his receivers. The defense will be a lot better. Playoffs are on the track. And then when I got that, I said, well, George McIntyre or Faison Brandon may not be as polished as Joey, but at the same time, I said, this is better for college football. Everyone loves like a true good quarterback battle. Off seasons are boring. Spring practices are boring. As someone you probably followed TCU practices. If there's not a
Absolutely.
if there's not a quarterback battle going on, it's a giant snooze fest. So you go into quotes and they ask, "Yeah, I gained 20 pounds. My bench has gone up. My squat has gone up." And that's basically spring practice, is that all the players are in the best shape of their lives and camaraderie is high. Now
Right.
Tennessee fans will get actual news. I do want to wish Joey well. He came in with not much experience. He does seem like a great person. I think he's going to try to go to the NFL draft, but regardless, he is going to be great in whatever career he goes professional in. Just seemed like a really good guy. I know it wasn't the greatest Tennessee football season, but I mean, like I said, like they lost their QB. They lost Nico Emiliava. I used to know that Jackson when he was at Tennessee, and I have not pronounced his full name in a while since he left. But Nico put them in a hole, and I thought Joey did a really, really good job. Maybe three reallys. Let's just do two reallys. They didn't go 8-4 and lose to Vanderbilt, but I wish him well, and then it will be exciting to see what George and Faison do compete. I think George will win just because I think it's really hard for a true freshman to win, but Faison is a 5-star.
And remind
So,
me, Toy, how long have those guys been in the system right now? And where are either one of those guys transfers, or are they true recruits that Heupel's gone out and gotten?
okay, so Faison is a true freshman, so this is his first spring. So he came in December. So as a true freshman, and then George is a sophomore. He might be a redshirt freshman. He may not have played enough to be able to like redshirt. But either way, George, they're both Josh Heupel recruits. And George started off as a 5-star, but he didn't go to the camps and he kind of fell a little bit in the rankings and he
Okay.
finished as a 4-star. But he's from Nashville. He's a Tennessee
Okay.
kid. So I think a lot of Tennessee fans were honestly not too crushed over the Joey Aguilar decision because I think
Right.
he started out as a 5-star, chose us over Nick Saban in Alabama. So I think you see a lot of Tennessee fans be like, "Oh, a Tennessee boy got to get us to the promised land." He gets the true Tennessee people excited just because
Right.
there is
Right.
something romantic about. He's from Nashville, but there is something romantic about a local Tennessee kid going on and being great. But yeah, it's a true quarterback battle. I think
Yeah.
that's all I have to really say because I don't know if most of our listeners really care about Tennessee sports, but I'm a Tennessee
Well, but
fan.
but that but that kind of stuff, like you said, a good old fashioned quarterback battle, and keeping up with it and reading the message boards over the next couple months is always a lot of fun. And then once we get into summer practices, like that's when you can really start getting excited, and depth charts start coming out, and you start getting a better idea of like what things start to look like. And I know that I follow all that stuff for TCU, and I'm keeping up. Shout out to the Frogs Insider podcast, Jamie Plunkett and Melissa Treeblosser and their whole team. They do a great job of just covering all that stuff and keeping all the Horned Frog listeners up to speed. And I know you're invested the same way with Tennessee athletics. So I get, obviously the casuals probably don't get jazzed up about that, but I definitely do.
I love reading all the camaraderie stories in the summer. It says, yeah, the quarterback and the wide receivers they hiked Mount LeConte and then they camped and they threw the football and they talked about their feelings and roasted marshmallows. And they're going to, this is the closest any team has ever been to each other. And you get those stories in the summer and they do get you pretty fired up. They do get your heart beating a little bit faster because,
Oh yeah.
football's on and then you look at the calendar and you're like, "Oh, it's July 10th. We still have 7 weeks until the
Right.
season opener."
And then that preseason AP top 25 drops, and then you start getting really excited, and if you're a TCU fan, the past couple years we have not been on that list. We've been receiving votes, but you get a little pumped up, and yeah, I'm excited, and I love watching all that stuff as we creep closer to what will be another college football season.
Yeah, it's exciting, and then you have high school football. You can maybe catch a local high school football game to kind of tide you over until college football
Yeah.
because for some reason, high schools in Tennessee start their season 2 weeks earlier, and they play in 95-degree weather.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know why they just don't start when college does, but I'm not I don't make those decisions, but if I did, it would be at Labor Day. But anyway, it is good because you can go to a couple of high school football games to kind of as a nice little appetizer.
Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, yeah, and again, I read an article. I'm not going to pretend to know how all of the legal side of it all works. I guess my take on all of this, my opinion on all of this is I just want it to be consistent. I don't want and I get it. These are, correct me if I'm wrong, these are state level courts. So, I don't, all of that works either. And so I'm just asking, I understand the NCAA's opinion and stance on it. I'm just asking for consistency from a litigation standpoint, from a legal standpoint. And obviously, I know each case is different. Chandler Moore's at UVA's case at UVA is different than Joey's case at Tennessee and is different than Trinidad's case at Ole Miss. And obviously, every case is different. But again, I would like to see consistency and no preferential or favorable treatment to any one player based off success in a past season or anything like that. As again, we continue to move through this ever evolving landscape of college football.
Oh yeah, I agree. I now that I don't have a player who is 25 years old, I can now say without feeling like a hypocrite that I'm tired of 25-year-olds in college football. I'm sure that, like you said, with consistency, I'm sure that there'll be another similar situation where another player wins his injunction and he gets to play as a 25-year-old, and then people will ask, well, why didn't Joey get his? But like I said, I don't know what went into the legal decision because I don't really know much about law and I'm too old to start studying it. So that's all I'm going to say on that matter. But yeah, I'm excited for football and I'm hopefully excited that it slowly starts returning to people who, are college aged and aren't old enough to rent a car. And
That's what we'll use as our litmus test, as our benchmark is can you rent a car or not?
it's like, if not, you either need to be in the NFL or you need to be getting a job. If you're a
There's a
if you're a Tennessee football player and you're worried about starting your career and you're like, well, I want to play as a 25-year-old because I don't know what I'm going to do. The good news is that pretty much any company will give you a job if you're a Tennessee football player in Knoxville. So
true.
yeah, just walk into the nearest local business and say, yeah, I play tight end, and then they know who you are and you'd be hired before you leave. So be like, yeah, I caught that touchdown pass against Florida in 21. Okay, you're hired.
Yeah. Well, Toy, I'll tell you what has not been boring, like watching spring practices and keeping up with that kind of thing is for college football, is college basketball has by no means been boring. Great weekend of hoops. Happy Horned Frog fan here. I know you're a happy Tennessee fan on the other side of the camera. You guys had a very nice win over Vanderbilt in what was a very much nail biter game all the way down to the end. TCU beat West Virginia. Arizona looks unstoppable, and Michigan looks really good, although Duke looks better. And Florida continues to look good. Wisconsin's back in the top 25. Let's run down some hoops talk, Jonathan. We're getting closer and closer. Everybody's starting to watch bracketology reports. Where are we at?
Well, I think three teams have separated themselves: Michigan, Arizona, like you said, and then the Duke Blue Devils, which when we talked about Duke UNC, it got our most views. So I might pander to Duke
there were
because
some heated comments on our TikTok too. There were some people basically saying that we were NC State fans, and that's why we were saying the things we were saying about Duke, and
no,
we are not NC State
listen
fans.
to no. I was mad because I'm a Tennessee fan, and them acting like it was North Carolina won the national title was cutting into my game.
I'm
That's
right
why
there
I was
with you.
mad. I said most other broadcasts cut off and say, "Oh, what a great game," but we're already 5 minutes behind because we're ESPN and we don't know how to schedule games properly. Tennessee and Vanderbilt didn't get that attention. Like, I didn't get to watch Tennessee celebrate. That was a big win, but right after the final buzzer, they cut to the next game because they were behind. But for Duke UNC, they had to interview the coach. They had to interview three different players. They had to interview the fan who stormed the court too early. They had to interview the mothers and the parents of the kids. because it's Duke UNC. Like I said, I do have some nice things to say about Duke later. The Duke UNC
Okay.
rivalry is a great rivalry. Just the coverage from ESPN's obnoxious. So
Absolutely.
Duke
Absolutely.
UNC fans should know that my ire goes toward ESPN and not their teams, because I wouldn't mind watching all those interviews if they knew how to schedule games and Tennessee and Kentucky hadn't tipped off already. And
Yeah,
Tennessee's the first,
I'm there. I'm with you. I am in full agreement.
but there's three teams. And but the thing is, Jackson, is I feel like there's three teams that are definite best, but I still feel like there's several teams that can knock off those teams on a given night. So
That's what I was going to say. And you have your top 3. You've got teams like Iowa State, teams like Houston, teams like Tennessee, teams like Florida, BYU. I mean, there are this group of like what I would say 15 to 20 schools that are on the right night can beat anybody. Alabama, Wisconsin. I mean, there are some teams that are very, very, very capable. And I mean, right now, I mean, if Tennessee continues to win, at one point, Lenardi had them as low as a projected 6 seed. Would love for you guys to be able to get closer to that 4 seed territory, and stop hanging around that 6 seed area. So,
well, I think the thing about this year is that, yeah, you have three really great teams, but then, like you said, there's teams that I think I could also see winning the national title if they get if like stuff falls their way. Like I could see Houston winning a
right.
national title. And then you have Florida. Florida's come on late and they've already won a national title. So their coach knows how to win the big game. And Florida's starting to shoot the three better. Like they always had a great post presence, but now they're getting better shooting from their guards. So they look like a more complete team. And yeah, I'm excited. And Jackson, I think the reason basketball is exciting this year is how great is this freshman class? I mean, that's why NBA teams are tanking, because you have AJ for BYU, you have AJ DeBonsa,
Mm-hmm.
and then teams might be the number 1 overall pick. And then I want to keep calling him Carlos Boozer because Carlos was his dad, but Cameron Boozer for Duke.
Right. Cameron Boozer. He's
Uh,
Cam Boozer is legit, man, and it's as a Duke fan or not Duke fan, it's fun to watch that kid play basketball.
and then you have Nate Ament for Tennessee. He got off to a little
Yep.
bit of a slower start, but I think he has a high of a ceiling as anyone, and he's starting to kind of get his stride, get comfortable. Yesterday was great because I feel like yesterday was the first game that he didn't have his best performance, but was still able to impact the game. Obviously, hit the game-winning shot, but Vanderbilt did a great job defending him. They frustrated him with his physicality, and Nate Ament kept finding ways to contribute and to help his team. And that was really exciting because in March, if you're a great player, you have to find the great players in March and at the NBA levels find a way to win when they don't have their best performance.
Well, and
Like
we
baseball.
watched Nate on a couple weeks ago when I was in town on a night when I wouldn't say that he was off by any means, but it wasn't a 20-point night, but he still finds ways to, if he's not contributing by actually scoring offensively, assists and things like that. He's just a pleasure to watch play the game of basketball. And when he's hot, he's even more fun to watch play. Just an all around super entertaining player. And if Tennessee plays their cards right, I mean, you're talking about a Tennessee team that could absolutely be, if they get the right matchups in the postseason, could absolutely do some damage.
You say that, but then with Tennessee, the times where you thought they'd gotten the right matchups, they haven't won. And then when they've gotten more difficult matchups, that's when they've made their run. Because I remember 2018, Virginia was the number 1 seed for them. Oh, they were the first number
Right.
1 seed to lose either. The bracket opened up perfectly, and Miami lost on a buzzer beater to this team called Loyola. The path was opening perfectly for Tennessee. What happens? Their starting center was out, and then they lose to Sister Jean, and I forgot the guard who broke our
Rest in
hearts'
peace,
name.
Sister
Custer.
Jean.
Rest
Yeah.
in peace, Sister Jean. Great lady. Loyal. I was actually at that game. Loyal fans were great. Got to tip your cap. Custer was his name. I got to give the guy who ripped
Yes.
my heart out respect. So
Yeah.
Custer, if you're listening, you really hurt my feelings with that shot, but I guess congrats on the win 8 years ago. And then you also in 23, the bracket opened up because again, it's really funny, Jackson, that there's only been two times that a number one seed has lost to a 16 seed, and Tennessee was in that bracket for both of those times, and neither time were they really able to take advantage because in 23 they beat a really hot trending Duke team, John Shire's first year. You're like, okay,
Yep.
Purdue's gone, so they're gonna FAU's good, but they don't have to play the number one seed, and then like they have FAU and Kansas State for their first Final Four. What happens? They can't throw the ball into the ocean against FAU. Euros Plashes gets a really dumb, flagrant foul. And then FAU turns out to be pretty good because they were a buzzer beater away from making the national title. So that's a really
Yeah.
long-winded way to say that just because the bracket opens up, that's not necessarily a good thing for Tennessee. The past couple of years, they've had to play high seeds and make the Elite Eight, and they had, unfortunately, in the Elite Eight, they faced a team that was just simply better than them. And there's
Right.
really,
Right.
but speaking of the tournament, Jackson, like it was kind of weird how many great games there were yesterday.
It was really, yeah, enjoyable games. I actually had to work all of yesterday. I was out of the office a couple days this week on bereavement, and so I worked yesterday. And so I was more scoreboard box score watching than I was actually watching games. I did get to watch the majority of the TCU game, continue to be a bubble team. But obviously the Duke game was great. The Arizona Houston game was awesome. So yeah, just enjoyable games all around.
It was hilarious. It was also hilarious because Michigan and Duke were playing in DC with like 2 weeks left in the season, like a non-conference
Yeah.
game. You don't really see that often. And
No, you really don't.
honestly, I'm going to drop another hot take about Duke. It's just really hard for me to actually hate Duke basketball at the moment. And I know that if you're not a Duke fan and you like college basketball, you kind of have to hate Duke. But just going to be honest, I really like John Shire and I really like this Duke team. We talk about that UNC game. I think that was the perfect game for them because basically Duke looked like the better team the whole game. They just did a lot of dumb things. I think they kind of went into autopilot toward the end of the game. And sometimes the best time to have those games is in February because it really like d- drives home to the team. Oh, like if we're not locked in, our season could end in March at any time. And I
Hmm.
think Duke has been playing on a different level after that. But my theory of why people hate Duke, Jackson, and the reason I don't is because Duke has been in the tournament every year. They've had so much success that I just think that a lot of fan bases have had their like dream seasons ruined by Duke. And that's kind of why you have a lot of the animosity toward them. And Tennessee's just never had to have that happen to them because I think it, it's really easy to like despise a team that ends a great basketball season because one of the most heartbreaking things you can experience as a fan is a heartbreaking loss in the NCAA tournament. And that's kind of why I have a bias against Purdue. If you're a Purdue fan and listening, you're probably laughing right now because you know why. But two of the Tennessee's most heartbreaking tournament losses were to Purdue. So
Yep.
I can't stand these guys. Like Ryan Klein, another example of probably a great guy, but he broke my heart. And then you had Zach Edey a couple years ago and that excellent Purdue team.
Yep. That team.
So So I feel that's why a lot of people don't like Tennessee fans because what Purdue has done to my Vols, Duke has done to they've done to so many teams that they've
Well,
just
and
like Wisconsin.
a lot of people were questioned what would happen when Mike Krzyzewski inevitably left, and what would Duke basketball look like. And this is not us pandering to Duke fans. I do not like Duke. I do not pretend to like Duke. I have
I
family
like this
that went
Duke's
to.
team.
I do
But
have
yeah, I see what you're
family.
saying.
I do. I like their coach right now. But I mean, I have my wife went to undergrad, or sorry, not undergrad, went to grad school at UNC, and I do have family that goes to NC State as well. You know who you are, and I know you're listening, so shout out you guys. But that does not mean I'm an NC State fan. I'm just saying I do not like Duke. I don't pretend to like Duke. But what I'm
Great school.
saying, or what I was gonna, it is a great school. What I was gonna say though is there were a lot of people who wondered what would Duke basketball look like when Mike Krzyzewski left, and I think we've got a pretty clear answer. They're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. They continue year in and year out to be really good. And this year looks like they might have all the pieces of the puzzle to go win a championship. They're going to have to get through some really good teams to do it, but they proved to us on Saturday that they have what they have the arsenal to make that happen. It can absolutely happen. I have no doubt that Duke basketball can go out there and get it done. Will I be rooting against them? Yes. Do I think that it could absolutely happen? Also, yes.
Yeah, and there's also another thing about Duke too, is that I did pander to their fans a lot. So I do have to say that a lot of their fans, I don't really respect their Duke fandom because it's obvious they like Duke because they're good. Because that
I
always
would
drove me
like to.
crazy.
I would love to take a poll and ask Duke fans if they actually attended Duke in some
Even if
capacity.
even if they had a relative or even if they lived in North Carolina, that I would accept that. But you had a lot of people in
Right.
Tennessee who would like Duke and then root for like the Cowboys, Duke, Bama. Uh, they would just root for Duke because they loved Coach K or they loved a certain player, and it was just clear that they
You know.
wanted to
You know
hop
who
on the
else has a fan base just like that, Jonathan?
who.
Notre Dame football.
That
Very
is true.
similar.
I have not had to interact with them as much, and Notre Dame is not as successful, so their fans don't have as much opportunity to be as obnoxious. But I don't respect a lot of Duke fans because they try to tell me how much they love the Blue Devils. I'm like, you have not even set foot on campus because you can't even get tickets to the game. Like, I went to Tennessee, like, I had late nights in the library. I like ate their crappy cafeteria food. I am an actual Tennessee fan. You are not a real Duke fan because you did not step foot on the campus. You did not have late night study sessions. You did not meet like your friends. You don't have a grandfather that taught at Duke. Like I had a grandfather that taught at UT. Like I actually am a UT fan because I have connections to Tennessee. I went there.
Right.
You have no
Right.
connections to Duke. So don't try to act like your fandom is anywhere near mine.
Preach, brother. Preach, man. This is your music to my ears. I am right there with you.
So yeah, that's all I have to say is that I feel like a lot of Duke fans are fake. And if you went to my school and you're listening, you know who you are. And I still have zero respect for your fandom. You're a bandwagoner. Well, you could be a bandwagon fan, Jackson. My whole point is just don't act like they'd be like, yeah, it was a rough night for my Blue Devils. And I'm like, don't try to act like you have the same fandom that I do for the Vols. I have my
um,
degree from Tennessee, Jackson. I have my degree. My sister has a degree. My
I
grandfather
know.
taught there.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, loud and clear. And yeah, it drives me nuts. And that's why I say the same thing about Notre Dame. It's like, yeah, just give me a break, you know? And it's different when it's like the state's school, right? Like if you live in North Carolina and you maybe don't have direct connections to NC State or UNC, I would have more respect for you choosing to root for one of those schools in athletics than I would for rooting for Duke. It's the same like TCU doesn't have a ton of bandwagon fans. We're a small private school in northern Texas. I completely understand why people want to root for Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and the Longhorns. I get it. Same if you live in Alabama or Tennessee. And
Or
so
Georgia.
you're preaching or Georgia, right? You're preaching to the choir, 100%. But before we get too carried away, I've got a basketball question that I want to ask you. And I apologize, my skin's super dry. I keep itching my face. Jared, you can edit that out.
No,
Um,
keep it in.
it's just the weather's been so dry here in Virginia. Yeah. It's anyways. I don't need to talk about my skincare routine on the podcast. Um, I have a question for you, Jonathan. Because it seems like year in and year out, there's one or two non-power four teams that are nasty. We can talk about like FA. It was FAMU right last year that was really good, and College of Charleston was that last year or 2 years ago that were really good. And so I want to ask you I want to ask you your opinion on who is the best non-power team, power conference team right now in, that you think will make some noise in the postseason.
Well, I feel like it has to be Miami of Ohio because they're 27-0 right now and ranked 22nd. I've not watched the Miami Ohio game, but I don't care what league you play in or what conference you are or how easy your non-conference schedule is. Going 27-0 in any conference is really impressive and means that you're probably going to get you'll probably get, I don't even know what seed they'll get, but that tells me that they are capable of getting to the Sweet 16. If you're able to go undefeated at this point in the season, you probably are going to get a seed where you're able to make it to the Sweet 16 and then maybe give one of these elite teams we mentioned a run for their money. So I would have to go with
Right.
Miami, Ohio. Just obvious answer.
I would agree with that. I'm pulling up the latest bracketology right now to see where they're projected. So if you want to keep talking for another 30 seconds, I'll have their projected seed pulled up.
Yeah, shout out to Joe Lenardi. There's other great bracketologists. I think Bracket Matrix. This is for the listeners, Jackson. I'm giving them information, but Bracket Matrix basically compiles all the different bracketologists. How does one become a bracketologist? That's a great question. I don't know, but yeah, let's see. I'm pulling up Bracket Matrix now. Jared, do not edit this. If people are still listening to this, it's because they genuinely love us. Or if they get to this point, it's because they just want to hear what we have to say. So, Bracket Matrix, yeah. So they have Tennessee as a 5 seed, and then where do they have Miami of Ohio? They have Miami, Ohio as an 11 seed.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. They also have, I just looked at their net ranking is 48. Jonathan, I'm a big believer in the net ranking. I follow the net ranking almost more than the KenPom, just because I love keeping up with where everybody stands in Q1 and Q2, Q3 wins and losses. Miami of Ohio right now has 0 Q1 wins. So even though they're 27-0, the majority of those are Q3 and Q4 wins. Believe they only have 1 or 2 Q2 wins. So I'm sure that's probably what's hurting that 11 seed. And how a team like TCU, who is 17-10, and 500 in conference play, has a higher net ranking than a team who's 27-0. This is also part of the reason why, like, I kind of hate the AP poll for basketball, because it really just doesn't. I don't know. I feel like I've heard you say this before. It doesn't have a ton of implications to where things will shake out in the end.
No, I think true basketball ball knowers, I know we're the not so ball knowers, but I feel like true basketball fans look at net and Ken Palm. Ken Palm is pretty accurate. Like I've noticed that like
Yeah.
usually Ken Palm does a good job. Like there's one statistic that like Ken Palm, like if you're not like in the top of Ken Palm, you're not going to win the national championship. Like usually all the national champions are ranked pretty high in Ken Palm. Shout out Ken Pomeroy for creating a cool system. You can come on the pod anytime. Uh, but then Jackson, to answer your question, a dark horse is St. Louis. Apparently, St. Louis is 22nd in net. They're 24-2. So that's a non-power 5 team to keep an eye on because it looks like they are
Yeah.
2-0 in quad one games. Yeah, it looks like they're
Okay.
2-0 in quad one. So, not so ball knowers, you heard it from us. We're the first to report. Keep an eye on St. Louis and Miami of Ohio as potential Cinderellas in this NCAA tournament. But most likely, if
Jonathan,
there
are we
is,
counting the Big East as are we counting the Big East Conference for college basketball? Are we going to say Power 5, or do we say Power 4? Do we count the Big East?
we say we count the Big East in basketball because they have St. John's and
Okay.
UConn, who are both
So
ranked very high. So,
we'll say Big East counts. Yeah, I was going to say St. John's. The other team that I was going to say to keep an eye on would be, and this team beat TCU a couple years ago handily, is Utah State. Utah State has a very good squad this year. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean,
Utah.
I've got the Ken Palm rankings pulled up right now, and we could go on and on. Did we lose you there for a minute? Are you back?
I'm here.
I lost. Okay, cool. I thought I lost you for a minute. Well, anything else to add, Jonathan, before we wrap up on college basketball?
No, I think yeah, keep an eye on Utah State, St. Louis, and shout out Tennessee. They're trending.
Absolutely.
Speaking as they were trending,
Absolutely.
you mentioned trending earlier. You know who is trending? The Tennessee Volunteers.
They sure are. You know who else is sort of kind of trending? Four wins in a row at home, the TCU Horned Frogs. They play host to Arizona State Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. I guess I will have to have the State of the Union and basketball running simultaneously.
Wait, the State of the Union is this Tuesday?
I believe it is this. It's if this Tuesday is the 24th, then I believe the State of the Union is
Oh,
this
it is.
Tuesday.
I thought it was
Okay.
in March for some reason. Oh, that's talking politics with the not so ball knowers. So
We will not bring up politics, but well, cool. Well, if we're done on basketball, you're in for another installment of we call them fake ad reads because we don't have enough views right now to be an official ad read, but company that is well, first, anything else to add? Are we good on basketball, Jonathan, before I jump in
we're
here?
good. Let's do our fake ad read.
All right. Perfect. So I'm sure all the viewers have been wondering why in the world I am wearing a hat with a pair of scissors with a bow tied around it. They're probably like, what? This guy usually wears a TCU hat or a Yankees hat or something like that. Other than the fact that I'm a collector of hats, I have entirely too many hats. You can ask my wife. She's always finding them in various places on top of shelves in the kitchen, on top of hat racks in various spots in our house. Anyways, enough about hats. The logo for the company that we are going to talk about is on my hat. And it is a company out of San Diego, also known as San Diego, California. They are called the Long Hairs. And I am not, I've got maybe longer hair than most men, not long enough that I could use a ton of this company's products. But a fraternity brother of mine started this company with one of his best friends. They were featured on Shark Tank, which is pretty cool. So you can watch
That's
their
awesome.
episode on Shark Tank. But you might be asking, well, Jackson, what does this company do? Well, I'm here to tell you. The Long Hairs makes a line of hair care products for men with longer hair. What's really cool, though, is you don't necessarily have to have longer hair to use all of their products. Obviously, the product that got them started was they made hair ties for guys. And so
Nice.
super industrial strength hair ties that don't wear out. You know who could have really used some of these products a few years ago is our friend Rob, Jonathan.
Where are my
When
cats?
he
My
had
cats my cats love hair ties, so
But anyways, so yeah, hair ties for guys is what got them started. They basically were making hair ties that were industrial grade, but still really soft and, were really cool. And that company basically, evolved into, shampoos and conditioners and serums and, just hair care stuff and apparel. As you can see, this awesome hat that I'm rocking right here.
that looks great.
It's a great snapback hat. So I love their stuff. And yeah, shout out their two guys. The one that I know goes by the nickname El Rubio. But check out their website. Just look up the Long Hairs and you can check out their whole line of products on their website. They're on social media as well. But anyways, love their products. I've got some of their stuff that Chris has given me over the years. I just used his legal name, but that El Rubio's given me over the years. But yeah, I mean, it's a super cool company. Go check them out. You don't have to be a guy to use their products. If you're a girl and you're listening to the podcast, even though they call their products hair ties for guys, anybody can use their products. It's for anybody that wants to tame their mane. So the Long
That's a great.
Hairs.
I might
So
get some.
yeah.
I'm not even kidding, Jackson. I might buy some for our cats because our cats love to play with hair ties and they keep
There
taking
you
my
go.
wife's and driving her crazy. And she keeps losing hair ties because they'll take them and hide them somewhere. So I might get.
Well, I think they do 10 or 15% off for first time buyers. So you might even get a deal. You can get your wife some, and you can get your get the cat some as well.
I'm actually that if it's for women, I might get her the hair ties, and then they can
Dude,
use the.
and what's crazy is the designs. I wish I could flash an image up on here of like all the designs that they do. It's the coolest thing ever. Whatever their creative team is cooking up in the lab, like kudos to their team because it's good stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, they sound like an awesome company, and it's cool that you know those people. And glad we did a fake ad read for them. And I'm hoping that our 24 subscribers, maybe, hoping we can bring them some business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that ends my ad read. Shout out to the long hairs. Check out their stuff. Toy, I've added, I love how we do these experimental segments. And if they do great, we'll keep them and, have them be occasional. And if they totally suck, then we'll just cut them out. But I want to dive in. Our last kind of topic of the night here is a new segment that it doesn't have a name. Maybe you can come up with a good name for it. But it's not sports related. I want to talk about just some stuff that's going on in our lives. Maybe our listeners will find this cool. Maybe if they've stuck around for this long,
It could
you
be
know.
called "Get to Know Our Host."
Yeah,
There's
well, that's great. Get to know the
there's more
host. I love it.
there's more to us than sports. There's more to us than just our knowledge of ball.
Um, but yeah, so basically, I just want to take 10 minutes, maybe even less. Just what are three things, and I'll answer too. You can throw it back to me after you answer, Jonathan. But what are three things in your life right now that are bringing you joy outside of watching sports?
Oh, that's a very easy answer, Jackson. So my wife brings me a lot of joy. Not just saying that because her dad listens to this podcast regularly. I genuinely mean it. I love my wife so much. When you said hobbies, like I love watching new TV shows with her. It's funny. Like I am terrible at video games, but she's really good. So I'll watch her play like an RPG or a video game with a really strong storyline, and that's fun. We like going on
Yeah,
little adventures together. And then another person that's bringing me joy is my son. You got to meet him. He loves the book that you and your wife got him. He laughs at
yeah.
all the animals.
Your son is great. Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Keep up
So,
the good work there.
and so he brings me a lot of joy. And then, uh, he's bringing me a lot of joy, and then obviously just watching him grow up, and then I think the third thing, honestly, is just that's hard because you've asked me a hard question. I'll let you go since I went a long time because like for me, there's
All
a
right.
lot of stuff that I have to choose a third because there's so many good
Well,
options.
yeah, think about your third. You're not getting off that easy by only giving two. But yeah, I've given this a little thought, and mine probably changes daily, to be completely honest. But just things that I'm enjoying right now outside of tuning into sports is I'm getting really pumped up for a trip that you are going to be taking
Yeah.
with me and a couple of our other friends in April. We're retreating to the mountains of Virginia for 4 days, and I'm getting really pumped up about that. Locking in the Airbnb was kind of the last thing on as the trip planner myself. Locking in that Airbnb was kind of the last thing on that list. So that's causing me some joy, getting excited to see every. It's rare that all of us from that group are able to all get together in person, and I just think it's super important that we continue to do things like that as we get older. So that's something that's causing me joy. So that's number one. Number two, I am very excited for my in-laws. My wife's parents will be visiting in a week. Well,
Let's
less than a
go.
week now. So, weather's actually trending better here in Virginia. Thinking about getting my grill has been in winter hibernation out on the back deck. I'm an avid griller, love using the grill. And my back deck setup's great. So, getting very excited about cranking up the grill. Like I said, weather dependent. Going to treat them to some of my signature burgers on Friday night and something else probably on the grill Saturday night. So that's number two. And then number three is a two-part answer. And, I will say I've been doing a lot of reading. So, and why I will say it's a two-part answer is because I'm trying to change my media intake. So I'm trying to, obviously, the age old spend less time on your cell phone, less time on social media can be a little bit difficult because I know I manage the socials for our podcast here, but just trying to basically spend less time on my phone. And one way that I'm doing that is I am not one for New Year's resolutions, but I did set aside a little personal goal to read 2 books a month. Uh, I had the flu all for a good chunk of January, and so then digging out after having the flu and having to, catch up on work and stuff like that, and some other stuff that was going on. I did not get to read my 2 books in January, but I am happy to say that I will easily hit my 2 book goal for the month of February. Might even sneak in a third
Boom.
book, which is great. The other thing that I've been trying to do. Thank you. Yeah, it's been great. I'll even I don't have it in the room with me right now, but I'm reading. I'm currently so I read over the weekend. I read a book called The Greatest Sentence Ever Written. It's basically kind of a meditation on the second sentence of the Declaration of Independence and how it ties into everything that's going on in the world from a personal and political standpoint. It's not necessarily a political book, but it's just kind of cool as we're coming up on the 250th birthday of America. It's been just it was good. It was enjoyable to read, and yeah, I enjoyed it. So for our readers, our listeners that like to read, highly recommend it. And then right now I'm about halfway through Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, which is a little bit more dry because it's truly like, written thousands and thousands of years ago. And so I'm obviously reading a translated version, but there's some really good stuff to take away from that. And then I think after that, I am planning on starting I don't know. I've been driving my wife crazy with how many Amazon boxes that have shown up at the door.
I've also tried to read. I haven't been reading very well lately, so I basically just started reading C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia because they're books for kids, which means that it's kind of an easy way to get back into reading. Um, it's kind of like working out. Like if you haven't been working out in a while, you're not going to be squatting 450 pounds. You're going to have to go to the Smith machine and maybe do a couple of assisted squats before you can lift with the big boys. And that's kind of how I view reading is that it's books written for children, but since it's C.S. Lewis, there's a lot of profound things that you can pick up from reading Chronicles of Narnia that you might have missed as a kid. Beautiful, beautiful series. Love Chronicles of Narnia. And I think the third thing is probably might actually just be Jessica and I getting I said her name. She probably doesn't care. But getting more active in church because we started attending a new church. And so far, that's been really good. I just like that a lot. And honorable mention I was going to say is food because I bet that's obvious to all of you all because the camera definitely does add 10 pounds. But I do love eating, and eating does bring me a lot of joy. And boom, self deprecating joke to end the podcast. Sorry, Jackson's mom, and sorry, father-in-law. I had to make it.
That was good stuff, Toy.
Can't think of a better way to close the podcast. So thanks for listening, everyone. And yeah, we'll see you next week and we'll have a guest.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for sticking with Not So Ball Knowers. We'll be back next week.
Thanks, Jonathan. We will see you next week.